Hello, can you hear me okay? I don't know if all right. So first of all, I just feel I'm thankful to be part of this session. I'm glad this session is happening in a deep learning summit. And I know that in the next year or two, the room will be just packed and full because people are going to know that there's no difference between making things responsibly and making things. It's the same thing. That's literally, you can leave now. That's the kind of the core of my message. So, I wanted to start. There's so many things I want to kind of share with you, and if it was my ideal forum, we'd be sitting in like a circle and just having a chat about it, because I think I have as much to learn from every single person than what I have to share with you. What I want to share with you is my journey into this world of responsible AI, which started, by the way, in college, which was decades ago, in a neural net class when I was considering a PhD in neural network, and I asked my professor, why are you trying to design an artificial brain and neural network when you don't even understand how human brain and neural networks work? And it wasn't that I was looking for an answer. You're 20, you're looking to basically a decision not to do a PhD, is what I was looking for, I think. But really, there was no good answer. And I still haven't found a good answer. I think this transference that we do, this confusion between a wonderful thing that a machine can be and a wonderful thing that people can be on their own, is a very fundamental missed opportunity and creates a lot of confusion in how we design, create what we think success is. So fast forward from being a PhD dropout to navigating telecom, cloud, building hundreds of products in conversational AI. A few years ago, I was sitting in an innovation lab in Palo Alto, my job was to figure out use cases, and if this sounds familiar, accelerate 5G and AI into everything. 5G and AI in gaming, 5G and AI in smart cities, just plug it in, good use cases, good use cases. I was on hunt for these good use cases because I like to succeed. I like to do well. I want to be smart. And if you give me a problem, I'm a problem solver, So depending on what that problem is, I'll solve it. So the problem at that time was this acceleration. So I was sitting in all these forums with universities in a co-create lab. I was in a very big company you've all heard of. And there were many other really big companies that were sitting in those rooms redesigning what cities would look like, what homes would look like, what education would look like. And they were all technical. And I kept saying, well, who's going to, should we invite the people who actually understand, who's been working, on this stuff for many years? And, outside of my professional job, I was involved with volunteering, parts of social justice, human rights, but I kept them separate. And I kept thinking those people will get invited to the table. And I kind of had this noise got really loud for me. And I thought, how are we designing our future? And how the heck is that design going to design us? Just think in the last few years how pandemic has redesigned what you do, how you do it. So this is the why, the how, the everything. And someone asked me, what's your why? You need this for your brand. I don't even know what that means about the brand, but I know what it means to be who you are and live in a world where you can be who you are. So I want to create, my why is I want to create a world where we're not too busy to see the obvious, where we are ready and willing to change what we call AI, what we call responsibility. And this is the thing that I came up with. I called it a framework. I left my innovation center job, which was a very nice job, and I thank the company, and they're still my friends. It's all good. I needed to think. And literally, I don't know how many of you felt this way, I didn't have time to think because I had to monetize 5G and AI in gaming. I was designing this and that, and it was exciting and fun, but I was not getting a chance to think about what it means to do it responsibly and what would that world even look like. I sat on this for some time feeling really embarrassed because if you're an engineer and you do a Venn diagram, you're kind of like, oh, what did I just do? Really, I've called it a framework, a lens, and what I realized more and more, take away responsible innovation. Put in a responsible founder, partner, employee. If you're all looking for a little love in your relationship, put that, swipe right or left. I haven't used that app for a long time. So you put that and see, I started noticing this is how I think I want the world to be. I want things to be in their place and be useful, people to be in their place, environment to be considered. And wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a balance between the money, that we're looking towards the money, the norms that we're focusing us, the laws, like obviously if you're picking a partner, make sure they don't have a criminal record unless you're doing a rehab work, which is fine too. And balancing delight and trust and open and safe. How open can you be while you're still feeling safe? And how dependable somebody is and how much variety and inclusion do they bring in? We'll come back to this view again and again because this isn't the answer. It's an aspiration. It's a goal. This is the world I want to work in. This is the world I want my daughter to grow up and have as an option to work in, the products that she deals with. So many kids, unprecedented number of kids are using technology and internet right now. And we did not design it for them. I talk to them, the third graders, fourth graders, and they want to know what privacy is and safe technology is. And now kids are saying, no, you can't take my picture. I didn't give you permission. So they're getting savvy, they're learning it, it's important to them because it's important. So I'll pause for a minute to talk a little bit about the more tactical things. So after you do all vision and everything and you think about this habitual way that I had understood innovation, I had to eat my own dog food, as they say. And I'm sorry if this offends any dogs or any people who own dogs or vegetarians, I'm one. But what I'm trying to say is that I needed to understand what tactical things are needed. How do we need to change how we log stuff, how we code, what toolkits we use, how we think about leadership, how do we define innovation itself? And that's what I did. I sat down with the founders in a founder circle. First, I thought one meeting will do, because we're in a hurry. We want to get to the answer. And then I sat down with doing things in the open source forums. Then we looked at a bunch of AI principles and toolkits and what's happening, studied those. And then I did a summer course with students that Veronica was part of, who's here. And I thought, well, they're not like corrupted yet, maybe. And they will think differently, and they would have a different sort of lens. And I learned a lot from what they were ready to see and wanted to see and not. And then the roundtable survey and report that I'll refer to during this presentation, what the findings were. And then doing assessment tools and white paper. The reason I mention is that what I found from here, and I'm happy to talk to you all afterwards, because we could just talk about this for an hour, is a lot of basic things, and it surprised me a lot. It was humbling, and one of the biggest message for me was stop sitting and thinking about it. You've got to do it, and other people have to come to the table. Because whatever answer I come up with, or the 5 people around me come up with, is not going to be right for everyone else. That's what the basic premise of responsible innovation is, that it means different things to different people, in different environments, different companies, different ecosystems. So what really is responsible AI? Remember what I talked about in the beginning, asking the question about why are we trying to design machines as people and people as machines? So cognitive science has given us the discipline of designing and organizing people as machines. And then AI is coming and saying, hey, I want to design machines like people. And I'm thinking, what the heck? They're both great. Love them as they are. Let them be. And that's why we get confused, because who's responsible? Who is using AI? But not only that, where is AI being used? What systems is it embedded in? That matters, right? So if you can do a responsible AI program, but you're building everything else, your metaverse and your all the other products irresponsibly, how's that going to work? Where's that? Where shall those two meet? So one of my biggest findings was that AI or technology is not the problem. They're not good or bad. They just are, they are, they are. We are the ones who have to retrain ourselves. So all these concerns that we found in the survey and that we came from the report and that you hear about, bias and polarization and data integrity and parity, do you think this just started with AI or technology? Was media unbiased before technology? Were people just fair? Where do you think the legacy and practice and habit comes from? I think the road to responsible AI is bumpy because we have to change the way we think about ourselves and our place in the world. That's a lot. Are we ready for that? So I come back to this thing that I've now called framework, lens, muscle, and come back to this view of this world. And there's a white paper, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can go and read. So I'm not going to spend too much time in here. But I want you to just think about how you think of laws and regulations or the market. Is it a pressure, or is it a container? Does it help you give healthy boundaries that you can operate in? How about cultural norms? And how do they vary from space to space? So if you are here in this conference versus you go and work somewhere versus you're sitting there and rolling out a product, how would you balance these things? And people who study neuroscience and are designing AI, and we think about the integration of devices and processors, body and mind. We use kind of those language interchangeably. And what we're understanding is it's really about integration and balance, and you have to figure that out for yourself, for that product. So I talk to a lot of founders, AI founders, who come to me with their product design. They say, what would you change in this? What would you change with this? Sometimes they're just messing with me. Sometimes they really want to make the change. And so we sit down and we take a look. We assess. We find out where they are, and we start wherever they are, little by little, and I'll talk about that. If anybody is interested, we've done a case study, bunch of case studies, but this one I like because it brings a lot of those ideas together. So social chatbots, a lot of companies who build chatbots, because I worked in conversational AI, they come to me, they want to talk to me about how to do that better. Mostly they're afraid to get caught and get canceled and get bad press, but some people really, really want to figure it out. They care, they really care. But they don't know how to do this. So this is an example that you can use to kind of learn the big meta. Okay, meta is no longer a word I can use, right? Big, large, macro problems. How many people know about this chatbot in the room? Yes, yes. Shawais is how it's pronounced. If you don't know Shawais, you might have heard of Tay. You might have heard of Zoe. I missed Zoe. Zoe was gone before I even blinked. And I didn't know, there was Rue. And there was one that got so depressed, the Japanese one, people were like, I don't know what happened to that chatbot. It got really depressed. So people were saying, well, this is showing that we're biased. It's true. AI is helping reflect back at us. That's, I think, a great opportunity because I'm not anti any technology. There just are. And AI is giving us this opportunity. Responsible AI that's navigating the bumpy road is giving us a chance to see this reflected back at us, the world we've made, what kind of changes we might want to make. So you've all heard of the Instagram and the report and impact on teenage girls. I don't know how many of us needed to read that report to know that. But whatever it is, it brings this to the fore. Well, here's a teenage personality that was chosen by a bunch of researchers in a very large company that has a commitment to ethics in society and responsible AI. Not for a few months, a quick little project, 6 years, and it still lives, and they spun it off in 2020 to a Chinese company. And guess what? This framework is an open AI framework. Open sounds good, right? You have to balance it with safe. And now there are videos, YouTube videos, where they do a face-off between real teenage girls who can sing better. What? You know, we have this amazing fascination with pitting machines that are like made by a bunch of people, and they're really servers and processors and a whole team of people and a person. Well, that makes sense. So you have these places where people are trying to look like that. They're trying to sound like that. They're trying to have a pitch and voice like that. And the amazing part of this is there is no major outcry about this. Even press covered it. It was like, it was this very successful financial transaction. So we can go really deep into it, but what we did with this framework is we use it to think, or this particular product is we use to think how we would apply the framework to change the design. So you could meet the goal of having an interaction that feels friendly, and yet it's not deceptive or harmful to a group of already, a group that's already a vulnerable group on the internet, which is teenage girls. So if we had time, we would just sit there and we think about it. And when I do this in classes, we get all kinds of answers. So I've been sitting with founders of AI companies and saying, you really want to create, people are using it for mental health. You want to really create a social chatbot for mental health. Let technology do what technology does best, and don't let it replace the human interaction. And so we figure out how can you shift the design, and where is it appropriate. The other thing I want to share with you in this bumpy ride is people ask about metrics. How do you know you're doing well? How do you know you're doing well? Well, I found trust to be a really, really useful and important indicator. So and trust is tricky in its own way, especially if you go after trust, like I'm gonna get you to trust me. Well, that's a person, just free advice, you shouldn't trust. Or people who say, trust me, right? It's like, why did you have to say that to me? Now I'm wondering, should I? There's a trust gap. If you look at this graph, which is a couple years old, but then there's new data coming out that people want to trust the businesses and places they work. And there's a gap. And the gap is basically means what are they capable of and what are they doing? So it's not like some ideal thing of like, you will never reach this place. It's just saying, if you notice, their expectations from tech companies and governments are low for people. They're like, I don't expect to trust them that much, but they're not even like meeting us, where we could trust them. So this was a really important exercise, and so this is an important indicator that you can use to see if you're in the right path. And I would say, do you trust yourself? Are you trustworthy? Should I trust you? So I ask people, like when doctors give you advice or something, or car mechanics, I say, if you were me, or let's say I was your friend, a person you really liked, would you do this? Right? Are we trustworthy? When are we not trustworthy? And then one of the last messages is, who are we waiting for? Everyone says, this is really important, we need regulations. This is really important, we really need you, Alka, to go and talk about this. Or we need AI ethics people, those thought leaders to come talk about it. It's really all of us. It's now. We don't ask for permission to innovate. We're not waiting for someone else to tell us it's okay to innovate education, even though we may not know anything about it. I've had founders who've come and talked to me in companies that are trying to do use cases about areas they don't understand. And I'm not saying don't do that, do it responsibly. How about taking that same approach with responsibility and accountability? Because the social and technical debt by creating things that don't work as well, that's amassing, is going to have a really big impact. And are we up for this challenge? You've heard, there's a really interesting narrative about this generation really wants to lead with values. I purport that every generation wants to lead with values. I think some generations just feel more comfortable speaking openly about it. And right now, this is a survey that came out that said people want to buy with values and their beliefs. You know, if that's the data you need to motivate you, then there's that data as well. And their survey results also show that people don't trust technology because they're confused by it. And we've talked about some of the underlying confusion is because how we talk about it, how we design it, how we communicate it. So that's the other thing that we work with is asking people to build what they want to build, examine why they're building it, what their goals are, and coming to it with trust and delight, balancing that. Yes, you want to make it effortless, but not at the cost of trust and deception. So one of the things we're doing is kicking off a leadership hub. What it will look like is evolving. So we encourage and welcome and request for you to come join us. Because really, as I said, whatever answer we come up with would be right for us. It will not be right for you. But it might give you clues of how to customize it and make it right for you. So this hub is for people who are running innovation centers. It's a little bit more for people, you know, who are, or help them build into a place where they're tech savvy or at least not intimidated by technology. Because that's one of the things we've run across is that there are people who are very motivated, like in government organizations or even defense. They get talked around simple things. And it's not because they're not smart. It's just that that lens hasn't been developed. So this is tech savvy leadership program is one of the things we're trying to design, customize for this group with the help of people in the hub. So it's not something we can do alone or that we want to do alone, but we really think that this is the gap and an opportunity for us to build this leadership and start making this kind of a normal way of doing things so that buying or investing or hiring people who who lead with beliefs and values isn't just a PR superficial veneer-y thing. It really starts to change and shift little by little. Every action, micro decision, moves it in a different direction. So last thing I would say as I leave is that I don't think there are good people and bad people. I don't think there are good companies and bad companies. I think the action, a series of action, moves you in one direction or the other. And you just have to choose. What kind of world do you want to live in? And how do you want to show up in that world? How you want your kids, or your friends, your family to use the things that you're making, you're designing. Because in the end, how we design the world designs us.